The smoking ruins of what had once been the Zephyrian flagship Stellar Dominion drifted through the void like a metallic graveyard, its hull breached in a dozen places by concentrated human plasma fire. Commander Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Force stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, watching through the viewscreen as enemy escape pods scattered like startled insects fleeing their dying hive. "Sir," Communications Officer Chen reported, her voice tight with disbelief, "we're receiving a broad-spectrum transmission from the Zephyrian command vessel. It's a surrender. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." Jake raised an eyebrow, his weathered face bearing the scars of 3 years fighting the Zephyrian Empire's relentless expansion across human space. The tall, broad-shouldered commander had seen enough alien treachery to be skeptical of any sudden capitulation. "Put it through," he ordered, his deep voice carrying the authority of someone who'd earned his rank through combat rather than politics. The main screen flickered, and Jake felt his breath catch. Instead of the expected Zephyrian War Council, a single figure dominated the transmission. She was tall, easily 6.5 feet, with the characteristic pale blue skin of her species, stretched over an athletic frame that spoke of both nobility and combat prowess. Her hair was a striking silver white, pulled back in an elaborate braid that marked her as high-ranking military. But it was her eyes that held Jake's attention, a deep violet that seemed to hold galaxies within their depths. Most striking of all was her armor. The ceremonial battle dress of a Zephyrian general gleamed with embedded crystals and flowing designs that somehow managed to be both protective and elegant. The fitted plates emphasized her alien beauty, while clearly marking her as a warrior of the highest caliber. "I am General Lyra Vexani of the Zephyrian Fifth Fleet," she began, her voice carrying a melodic accent that made even formal military speech sound like music. "I address myself to Commander Morrison of the human vessel." Jake stepped forward, his tactical mind immediately suspicious. "This is Commander Morrison. If you're looking to negotiate terms, no negotiations," she interrupted, and Jake was surprised to see what looked like relief in her violet eyes. "I formally surrender my fleet, my forces, and myself to human authority." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Jake's tactical officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez, looked up from his station with obvious confusion. "Our intel shows she commands over 40 vessels and 15,000 troops." "Why would she?" General Vexani seemed to hear the question despite the distance. "Because human," she said, her gaze never leaving Jake's. "This species has accomplished something mine has tried and failed to do for 3 centuries. "Which is?" Jake asked, genuinely curious now. "You defeated me?" The simple statement carried weight that resonated through their connection. Not through treachery or superior numbers, but through tactics, courage, and something we, Zephyrians, had forgotten: the willingness to sacrifice for others rather than merely for glory. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Jake thought back to the battle that had raged for 18 hours across 3 star systems. His small task force had been outnumbered 4-1. But they'd used hit-and-run tactics, sacrifice plays, and sheer bloody-minded determination to systematically dismantle the Zephyrian offensive. "In our culture," General Vexani continued, her voice dropping to something almost intimate, "when a warrior is bested by a superior opponent, they may offer themselves as a prize of war to honor that victory." The bridge grew even quieter, if that was possible. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks as he processed her words. "General, I think there might be some cultural misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding, Commander Morrison." She stepped closer to her own screen, and Jake could see that beneath her formal composure, she was nervous. "I offer myself to you. My knowledge, my loyalty, my service, and whatever else you might desire." Lieutenant Chen made a small sound that might have been a gasp. Jake shot her a warning look before returning his attention to the screen. "General, that's not how humans conduct warfare. We don't take sentient beings as prizes." For a moment, disappointment flashed across her alien features, followed by something that looked almost like desperation. Then what becomes of me? My people? The Zephyrian High Command does not tolerate defeat. If you do not accept my surrender personally, they will execute me and my senior staff for failure, then send another fleet to continue this war. Jake felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a familiar coat. Every decision carried consequences that rippled across star systems. He looked at his bridge crew, seeing the mix of confusion, curiosity, and concern on their faces. Your fleet surrenders unconditionally? He asked. Yes. Your forces will stand down and submit too. Human authority for processing? Yes. And you personally surrendered to me? General Vexani straightened, her military bearing evident despite her precarious position. I place myself at your mercy, Commander Morrison. In Zephyrian law, I am now your property, to do with as you see fit. The word property hit Jake like a physical blow. That's not how this works, General. Humans don't own other sentient beings. Then what do you propose? She asked, and Jake caught something in her voice. Hope, maybe. Or curiosity about what this strange human concept of honorable victory might entail. Jake ran a hand through his dark hair, thinking furiously. The strategic implications were staggering. A surrendered Zephyrian fleet would provide invaluable intelligence, and having their general cooperate willingly would be a diplomatic coup. But there were protocols, regulations, and his own moral compass to consider. Stand by, General, he said finally. I need to consult with my superiors. Commander, she said quickly, before he could cut the transmission. May I remain on this channel? In my culture, once a warrior has offered themselves as a prize, they cannot retract that offer. I am now bound to you unless you formally reject me. Jake paused, studying her face. Beneath the alien features and formal composure, he saw something. Very human vulnerability mixed with a warrior's pride. Stay on the line, he agreed. Chen patched me through to Admiral Harrison on priority encryption. Rodriguez, get me a detailed breakdown of that Zephyrian fleet composition.
Capitulation.
And someone find me the xenopsychology files on Zephyrian military culture. As his crew scrambled to comply, Jake found himself stealing glances at the viewscreen. Vexani stood at rigid attention, but he could see the slight tension in her shoulders. The way her violet eyes tracked his movements with an intensity that was both professional and personal. The next few minutes blurred together as Jake rapidly briefed Admiral Harrison on the situation. The Admiral's weathered face showed the same mix of disbelief and strategic calculation that Jake felt. A full Zephyrian fleet surrendering. Harrison's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Morrison, this could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. But this prize business ... I know, sir. It's complicated. Son. You're talking about what amounts to an arranged military marriage by their standards. Dr. Yamamoto's xenopsychology reports are clear when a Zephyrian warrior offers themselves as a prize. It's not just political, it's deeply personal. Felt his stomach tighten. Sir, I can't just ignore the strategic advantage either, Harrison interrupted. That general is Lyra Vexani, Commander. She's not just any Zephyrian officer. She's the daughter of their High Admiral, and one of their most brilliant tactical minds. Having her cooperation could end this war. What are you suggesting, sir? Harrison was quiet for a moment. I'm suggesting you think very carefully about how you handle this, Morrison. The Zephyrians take these cultural bonds seriously. Reject her outright. We lose any chance of cooperation. If you accept... If I accept, I'm responsible for her, according to their customs. But Morrison and... This is off the record hours psychologists believe. The Zephyrian concept of prize bonding isn't as one-sided as it appears. It's more like ... mutual guardianship. She places herself under your protection, but you also become responsible for her welfare and honor. Jake looked back at the main screen where General Vexani waited with the patience of a career soldier. Her violet eyes met his, and he saw something in them that made his chest tighten. Trust, maybe, or hope. How long do I have to decide, sir? According to the files, once the offer is made, it remains open until formally accepted or rejected. But Morrison, every minute you delay weakens her position with her own people, the longer she stands there. Waiting for your answer, the more it looks like she's begging. Jake closed the channel and returned his attention to the view screen. General Vexani hadn't moved, but he could see the strain in her posture now. General, he said carefully, need to understand something. This offer you're making, what exactly does it entail? Her violet eyes flickered with what might have been relief that he was at least asking questions. By Zephyrian law, I would become your personal responsibility. My knowledge, my skills, my loyalty, all would be yours to command. In return, you would be bound to protect my honor and welfare. And if I refuse, pain flashed across her alien features. Then I return to my people in disgrace. The High Command will execute me for failure, and this war continues until one of our species is extinct. Jake felt the weight of her words. This wasn't just about military strategy. It was about her life. There's something else, she continued, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Something I haven't told you about why this defeat, why it matters to me personally. Go on. General Vexani glanced around her own bridge, then seemed to make a decision. May I speak privately, Commander? What I have to say is not for the ears of my subordinates. Jake looked at his own crew, then nodded to Chen. Clear the bridge except for essential personnel. Route this to my ready room. As his senior staff filed out, Jake made his way to the small private chamber adjacent to the bridge. Followed him, and when he looked at it again, General Vexani had also moved to what appeared to be her private quarters. The change in setting seemed to strip away some of her formal military bearing. In the softer lighting, Jake could see the exhaustion in her features, the weight of command that he recognized in his own mirror. Commander Morrison, she began, her voice now carrying a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. I lied when I said this was only about honor and defeat. Oh, she moved closer to her screen, and Jake found himself unconsciously leaning forward as well. 3 months ago, my betrothed was executed by the High Command for questioning our war strategy. He believed, as I do, that this conflict serves no one's interests except the military-industrial complex that profits from eternal war. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You're a dissident. I'm a soldier who's watched our people die for a cause. It serves only to enrich the powerful while bleeding our worlds dry. Her violet eyes blazed with conviction. When I watched your tactics today, saw how you protected your wounded. How? You risked your own life to save a damaged cruiser that could have been abandoned. I knew I was fighting for the wrong side. The admission hung in the air between them. Jake realized that this wasn't just about military surrender, it was about a warrior's crisis of conscience. So when you offer yourself as a prize, also asking for asylum, she finished. Not just for myself, but for the 15,000 soldiers under my command who are tired of dying for corrupt leaders. Jake sat back in his chair, his mind racing. This was bigger than a simple military surrender. This was potential defection on a massive scale. General, what you're describing could be considered treason by your people. Her smile was sad but determined. Yes, which is why I need someone strong enough to protect me from the consequences. Someone who has already proven they can defeat Zephyrian forces. And you think I'm that someone? I know you are. Her voice carried absolute certainty. Commander Morrison, in 18 hours of combat, you did something no Zephyrian general has managed in decades. You outfought me without resorting to brutality or war crimes. Your crew follows you because they respect you, not because they fear you. And when you had the chance to destroy my flagship with all hands, you gave us the opportunity to surrender instead. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks at her praise. That's just basic humanity, General. No, she said firmly. That's exceptional leadership. It's why I'm willing to bet my life, and the lives of my people, on your character. The weight of her trust settled on Jake's shoulders. He looked at this alien warrior, this general who was risking everything on the belief that he was worthy of that trust, and felt something shift in his chest. If I accept your surrender, he said carefully, what happens next? Officially, I become your advisor and prisoner of war. Unofficially, ... She paused, seeming to search for words. Zephyrian bonding customs are complex. I would be bound to serve your interests, but you would also be bound to protect mine. It's not ownership. Commander, it's more like a military marriage of convenience. Marriage? Jake's voice cracked slightly. General Vexani's cheeks darkened with what might have been a blush. Not in the romantic sense necessarily, though. Zephyrian bonds can develop in that direction if both parties are willing. But primarily, it's a pledge of mutual loyalty and protection. Jake found himself studying her face, noting the way. Her silver hair caught the light, the intelligence in her violet eyes, the strength evident in every line of her body. She was beautiful, certainly, but more than that, she was formidable. A warrior and a leader who was placing her faith in him. How long would this bond last? Until one of us dies or formally releases the other. She paused. Commander, I should warn you, Zephyrian bonds are not entered into lightly. Once made, they create a connection between the participants. We would be able to sense each other's emotions, share certain thoughts. It's intimate in ways that go beyond the physical. Jake's heart rate picked up. You're talking about some kind of psychic link? Something like that? It's how Zephyrian warriors ensure absolute loyalty to each other. But it works both ways. Commander, you would know if I ever betrayed you, but I would also know your true feelings and intentions. The implications were staggering. Complete trust, enforced by biology or psychic ability. No lies, no hidden agendas, but also no privacy, no emotional barriers. This is a lot to process, General. I understand, but Commander ... Her voice grew. Urgent. My forces are growing restless. The longer I remain in this position of supplication, the more it appears I'm begging for mercy, rather than offering an honorable surrender. Soon, some of my more traditional officers may decide to restore honor by resuming combat. Jake could hear the subtle sounds of activity through her channel voices raised in what sounded like increasingly heated debate. Have minutes, perhaps? Commander Morrison, I need your answer. Jake closed his eyes, weighing the options. Accept, and he would be bound to this alien warrior in ways he couldn't fully understand. Reject, and she would likely die, along with any chance of ending this war through diplomacy rather than genocide. When he opened his eyes, General Vexani was watching him with an expression of quiet desperation mixed with warrior's pride. I say yes. What happens to your people? The ones who don't want to keep fighting? They become refugees under human protection, where they can choose to return to Zephyrian space and face the consequences of following me. And you think they'll follow you into exile? Her smile was fierce and proud. Commander, I've led these soldiers for 5 years, fled with me, fought beside me, trusted me with their lives. Yes, they'll follow me. Jake made his decision. General Lyra Vexani, he said formally, I accept your surrender and your offer. I'll take responsibility for you and any of your people who choose to come with you. The relief that washed over her face was immediate and profound. She dropped to one knee in what he assumed was a formal Zephyrian gesture of submission. I am yours, Commander Morrison. My life, my honor, my service all belong to you now. As she spoke the words, Jake felt something strange, a warmth spreading through his chest. A sense of connection that was definitely not normal. He could suddenly sense her emotions, relief, gratitude, fear, and underneath it all, something that felt remarkably like affection. Do you feel that? He asked, touching his chest where the warmth seemed centered. General Vexani rose gracefully, her hand moving to the same spot on her own chest. The bonding has begun. It will strengthen over time, but Yasai can sense you as well. Through this new connection, Jake felt her surprise at his emotional state. Where she had expected reluctance or resignation, she found instead curiosity, protectiveness, and something that might have been attraction. This is going to be complicated, he murmured. Her mental response came through clearly. Yes, but perhaps complicated in good ways. The thought of her voice in his head should have been disturbing. But instead, Jake found it oddly comforting. We need to get your people processed and figure out what comes next, he said aloud. Agreed. But Commander Jake, the use of his first name, sent another warm pulse through their connection. There's something else you should know about the bonding process. More surprises? It's not complete yet. The initial connection forms when the surrender is accepted, but full bonding requires. She paused, her alien cheeks darkening again. Requires what? Physical contact. Skin-to-skin contact while we're in the same space. Until then, the bond remains unstable, and neither of us could break it. Jake felt his pulse quicken. You mean? We need to ... touch, she finished. It doesn't have to be intimate, but it must be deliberate and sustained. Perhaps when I'm transferred to your ship? The practical implications hit him immediately. How long until that's arranged? Unknown. But Commander, if the bond breaks before it's completed, I'll lose the protection it offers. My own people might. See that as a sign that your acceptance wasn't genuine. Through their nascent connection, Jake felt her fear not of him, but of what her own forces might do if they perceived weakness or rejection. Then we complete it as soon as possible, he decided. I'll arrange for your immediate transfer to the Valiant. The gratitude that flowed through their bond was overwhelming in its intensity. Along with it came something else, anticipation. Mixed with nervousness about their upcoming meeting, General Jake said, I want you to know that whatever happens between us, I'll honor the spirit of this bond. You'll be under my protection, and I'll never abuse the trust you're placing in me. Her response came both through their connection and her voice. I know. That's why I chose you. As Jake began issuing orders for General Vexani's transfer, he couldn't help but wonder what he'd just committed himself to. He was about to be bound to an alien warrior, princess in ways that went beyond anything in human experience. But as he felt her steady presence in the back of his mind, her unwavering trust in his character, Jake realized he was looking forward to it. The docking bay of the UES Valiant hummed with activity as Jake stood waiting, his dress uniform crisp, despite the circumstances. Around him, carefully selected honor guard maintained professional composure while stealing glances at the Zephyrian shuttle, approaching through the magnetic field barrier. Through his growing bond with General Vexani, he could feel her nervousness, mixing with his own estranged doubling of emotion that he was still learning to navigate. Are you ready for this? Her mental voice whispered through their connection, and Jake had to resist the urge to respond aloud, as ready as anyone can be for something completely unprecedented. He thought back, amazed at how natural the mental communication felt after. Only a few hours, the shuttle touched down with barely a whisper, its sleek lines and crystalline hull markings marking it as clearly Zephyrian in design. Jake's tactical mind automatically cataloged its specifications, while another part of him focused on the approaching presence he could feel through their bond lyra, nervous but determined, surrounded by the emotional signatures of her loyal officers. The shuttle's boarding ramp descended with a soft hiss, and Jake's breath caught as General Vexani appeared at the top. Seeing her in person rather than through a viewscreen was like experiencing color for the first time. She was taller than he'd expected, her pale blue skin luminous under the bay's lighting. Her ceremonial armor had been replaced with what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire, flowing robes that managed to be both elegant and practical, adorned with rank insignia that sparkled like captured starlight. But it was her eyes that held him. Those deep violet orbs found his immediately, and Jake felt their bond pulse with recognition and something deeper relief, traction, and a vulnerability she was trying to hide from her own people. You're more impressive in person. Her mental voice carried warmth and a hint of amusement. Your crew's loyalty makes more sense now. Jake stepped forward as she descended the ramp. He was flanked by two Zephyrian officers who looked as nervous as soldiers could while maintaining military bearing. He could sense their confusion and concern. Through Lyra's emotional awareness, they were following their general into unknown territory, trusting her judgment, even as everything they'd been taught about humans suggested this was madness. General Vexani, Jake said formally, then added something that surprised even him. Welcome aboard the Valiant. Welcome home. The word home seemed to hit her like a physical force. Through their bond, Jake felt her emotional walls crack slightly, revealing depths of exhaustion and longing he hadn't expected. Commander Morrison, she replied, her melodic voice carrying easily across the bay. I formally surrender myself and my accompanying officers to your authority." Jake nodded to his honor guard, who stepped back to give them space. This was the moment the completion of their bond required physical contact, and both of them could feel the psychic connection straining like an overtaxed cable. "Before we proceed," Jake said, loud enough for both crews to hear, "I want to make something clear. Any Zephyrian personnel aboard this ship are under my personal protection. They are not prisoners. They are guests who have chosen to seek asylum with humanity." The relief from Lyra's officers was palpable, even without psychic abilities. Jake could see some of the tension leave their shoulders as they realized they weren't walking into a detention facility. Lyra stepped closer. Close enough that Jake could see the intricate patterns etched into her pale blue skin, not tattoos, natural markings that seemed to shift and flow like living art. When she was within arm's reach, both of them hesitated. "This will change everything," she warned him mentally. "Once the bond is complete, we'll be connected in ways that go beyond what either of our species normally experiences." "I know," Jake replied. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Instead of answering mentally, Lyra reached out and placed her hand on his chest, directly over his heart. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy coursed between them like controlled lightning. And Jake felt his consciousness expand to encompass not just his own thoughts and feelings, but hers as well. It wasn't invasive, more like two rivers joining to become something larger and more powerful than either could be alone. Through Lyra's awareness, he suddenly understood Zephyrian culture in ways no amount of briefings could have taught him. He felt her memories of growing up as military nobility, her horror at watching the war consume entire worlds for no purpose beyond political power, her growing conviction that her people were on the wrong side of history. In return, she experienced his own journey from a young officer who believed in simple right and wrong to a commander who'd learned that sometimes the greatest courage lay in showing mercy to enemies. But beyond the exchange of knowledge and memory, something else was happening. Their emotions were synchronizing, creating harmony where there had been discord. Jake felt Lyra's fierce protective instincts aligned with his own, while she absorbed his steady determination and unshakable moral center. The physical sensation was indescribably like being struck by lightning that healed instead of harmed. Jake was dimly aware that both crews were watching in fascination as energy patterns danced across their skin, marking the completion of an alien bonding ritual older than human civilization. When it finally ended, Jake found himself looking into Lyra's eyes with completely new understanding. She wasn't just an alien general anymore. She was his partner in every sense that mattered, bound to him by forces neither of them could fully comprehend. "Hello, bondmate," her mental voice carried warmth and wonder. "How do you feel?" Jake took inventory of his sensations. He felt stronger, more complete somehow, as if he'd been walking around with only half his faculties for his entire life. "Like I've been upgraded," he thought back. "Like I'm finally where I belong." The simple honesty of the statement sent warmth through both of them. Sir Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through their private moment. "Admiral Harrison is requesting an immediate conference call."
Oh,
Jake nodded, though he found it difficult to look away from Lyra. Their bond hummed with contentment and the promise of deeper connections to come. "General Lyra," he corrected himself, using her name for the first time. "We need to brief the Admiral on our situation." "Our situation," she repeated mentally, and Jake felt her happiness at the possessive pronoun. "I like the sound of that." They made their way to the conference room. Jake became aware of how naturally they moved together.
right.
Their steps synchronized without conscious thought, and he found himself automatically adjusting his pace to match hers while she unconsciously shifted to mirror his posture. The bond was already changing their basic behaviors, creating unity from their differences. Commander Lyra said aloud as they walked, "My officers will need quarters and assignments. They're skilled professionals who can contribute significantly to your operations." "Already thinking about integration?" Jake asked, amused. "I'm thinking about survival," she replied seriously, "both ours and theirs. The more useful we prove ourselves, the more likely your superiors are to see us as assets rather than complications." Jake felt her underlying concern through their bond fear that humanity might decide the Zephyrian defectors were too dangerous to keep alive. It was a reasonable fear given the circumstances. That won't happen, he assured her mentally. I won't let it. You may not have a choice. If your government decides we're a security risk, then we'll make sure they see us as valuable allies instead. The conference room's holographic display activated as they entered, revealing Admiral Harrison's weathered face along with several other high-ranking officials Jake didn't recognize. Their expressions ranged from curious to deeply concerned. Commander Morrison Harrison began without preamble. Please introduce your ... companion. Admiral, this is General Lyra Vexani of the Zephyrian Fifth Fleet. She has formally surrendered her forces and requested asylum for herself and any of her people who wish to defect. Jake felt Lyra's nervousness spike as the assembled officials studied her with undisguised fascination. To their credit, she maintained perfect military bearing despite the scrutiny. General Vexani, a woman Jake didn't recognize, spoke up. Director Officer Chen of Strategic Intelligence. Can you explain why you've chosen to abandon your own people? Lyra's response came through their bond first, a flash of anger at the phrasing. Before she replied aloud with diplomatic precision, Director Chen, I haven't abandoned my people. I've chosen to save them from a war that serves no one's interests, except corrupt politicians and war profiteers. Strong words, Admiral Harrison observed. Can you back them up with evidence? Without hesitation, Lyra began outlining the internal politics of the Zephyrian High Command with surgical precision. Jake felt her memories flowing through their bond as she spoke classified meetings, secret communications, evidence of deliberate war prolongation for economic gain. The officials listened with growing amazement as she steered Zephyrian military capabilities, political structures, and strategic weaknesses with the thoroughness of someone who'd been at the heart of their war machine. This intelligence alone, Director Chen murmured, could end the war within 6 months. That's my hope, Lyra replied. But only if you're willing to trust a defector. Trust is earned, Admiral Harrison said carefully. What assurances can you give us of your loyalty? Jake felt Lyra's moment of uncertainty through their bond and knew she was about to reveal something that could change everything. Admiral, she said formally, Commander Morrison and I have completed a Zephyrian bonding ritual. By my people's laws and customs, I am now bound to him and through him, to humanity in ways that make betrayal literally impossible. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake watched the officials exchange glances that ranged from shocked to calculating. Explain this bonding, Director Chen demanded. Lyra looked at Jake, and he nodded encouragement. It's a psychic connection that allows us to share thoughts, emotions, and loyalties. I cannot betray Commander Morrison without betraying myself. More importantly, I don't want to. That last part wasn't strictly necessary, Jake thought to her with amusement. Yes, it was, she replied. They need to understand that this isn't just about duty, it's about choice. Admiral Harrison leaned forward. Commander Morrison, do you confirm this bonding? Yes, sir. I can sense General Vexani's thoughts and emotions. Her loyalty is genuine, and her intelligence about Zephyrian operations is accurate. The strategic implications are staggering, another official commented. A bonded Zephyrian general could provide insights we've never had access to. Jake felt Lyra's discomfort at being discussed like a strategic asset rather than a person. They mean well, he assured her. They're just trying to understand something completely outside their experience. I know, she replied. But it's still unsettling to be treated like a piece of equipment. Admiral Harrison addressed Lyra directly. What are your intentions? Regarding your former fleet? My senior officers are prepared to formally surrender their commands and request asylum. As for the regular crew members, approximately 60% have indicated willingness to defect if guaranteed fair treatment. That's over 9,000 soldiers, Director Chen calculated quickly. Housing them, processing them, verifying their loyalty, it's a massive undertaking. But worth it, Jake interjected, if it means ending the war through defection rather than extermination. Through their bond, he felt Lyra's gratitude for his support, along with her growing admiration for his moral center. She had expected humans to be pragmatic at best, cynically exploitative at worst. Instead, she found herself bonded to someone who genuinely cared about the welfare of her people. "There's another consideration," Admiral Harrison said carefully. "The Zephyrian High Command won't simply accept this defection. They'll likely send forces to either recapture or eliminate their former general." "Let them come," Jake said with quiet confidence. "We'll be ready." His certainty flowed through the bond to Lyra, who felt a surge of fierce satisfaction at his protective instincts. "My people chose well when they lost to you," she thought to him. "Our people," he corrected gently. "You're human now, too, in all the ways that matter." The warmth that flooded through their connection was so intense that Jake had to work to maintain his professional composure during the rest of the briefing, as the conference concluded with tentative approval for the asylum program. Jake found himself looking forward to the private conversations he and Lyra would have once the immediate crisis was handled. Their bond had opened doors between them. But walking through those doors would take time and trust. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Lyra asked as they left the conference room. Jake considered the question, who was now bonded to an alien warrior. Princess responsible for the welfare of thousands of defectors, and potentially holding the key to ending an interstellar war. A few hours ago, he'd been a simple fleet commander following orders. "With you as my partner," he replied, "I'm ready for anything." Her mental laughter was like music in his mind as they headed toward their new shared quarters, their bond humming. With possibility and the promise of adventures yet to come, the command center of the UES Valiant blazed with activity as alarms echoed through the corridors. Jake burst through the doors with Lyra at his side, their bond immediately syncing them with the tactical situation before Lieutenant Rodriguez could even begin his report. "Sir, we've got multiple Zephyrian vessels dropping out of hyperspace," Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with tension. 27 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. They're broadcasting demands for General Vexani's immediate return. Through their psychic connection, Jake felt Lyra's surge of recognition. Mixed with grim satisfaction, "Hi, Admiral Korath," she identified mentally. "My father's chief rival on the High Command. He's come to make an example of me. How bad is this going to get?" Jake asked as he moved to his command station. "Korath doesn't negotiate. She'll try to board us and take me back for a public execution. Or he'll simply destroy this ship to prevent my intelligence from reaching human command." Jake's protective instincts flared through their bond, causing Lyra to pause mid-step as the intensity of his response hit her. The idea of losing her, of watching enemies hurt someone who had placed absolute trust in him, triggered something primal in the human commander. "All stations red alert," Jake commanded aloud. "Shields up, weapons hot. Signal the rest of the task force to maintain defensive formation around the refugee transports." "Sir, Communications Officer Chen reported, the Zephyrian flagship is hailing us directly. Audio only. Put it through." The speakers crackled with a voice like grinding stone, speaking accented but clear standard. "Human vessel, this is High. Admiral Korath of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. You are harboring a traitor and war criminal. Surrender General Vexani immediately, and your deaths will be quick." Jake exchanged a look with Lyra, whose violet eyes had hardened to steel. Through their bond, he felt her shame at having brought this danger to his crew, mixed with fierce determination to protect those who had protected her. "This is Commander Morrison," Jake replied calmly. "General Vexani has formally requested asylum under the Galactic Conventions on Warfare. She's under my personal protection." Korath's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your protection? Human, you have no idea what you've involved yourself in. That female is mine by right of conquest and law. Turn her, or I will take her from your corpse." The possessive language sent rage through both Jake and Lyra's shared consciousness. Jake felt her memories of Korath's previous interest in her accrued advances disguised as political maneuvering. Threats veiled as military orders. "He's the reason I was never allowed to marry Jarek," Lyra revealed through their bond. "Korath wanted me for himself, as a trophy wife to cement his political power." Jake's anger crystallized into cold determination. "Admiral Korath, General Vexani is a free being who has made her choice. I suggest you respect that choice and withdraw, foolish human. You think your primitive vessels can stand against Zephyrian might? I will enjoy watching you burn before I reclaim my prize." The COM channel cut off, and immediately the tactical display lit up with incoming threats. The Zephyrian fleet was moving into attack formation with the precision of veteran warriors. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, "they're targeting our escort vessels first, trying to isolate us from support." Jake felt the battle calm descend on him, the same state that had allowed him to defeat Lyra's superior forces. But now, instead of fighting alone, he had her tactical genius merged with his own through their bond. "Show me their formation," Lyra requested mentally, and Jake opened his tactical awareness to her completely. The result was extraordinary. Through their connection, Jake suddenly understood Zephyrian fleet tactics with the insight of a lifetime warrior. He could see the patterns Korath was using, predict his next moves, identify the weaknesses and formations that should have been impregnable there. Lyra highlighted a section of the enemy formation through their shared consciousness. "Korath's always been arrogant about his flagship shields. If we can get close enough, ... we coordinate a focused strike on his command vessel." Jake finished the thought. Disable his leadership, and the rest might reconsider. Their shared planning took mere seconds, flowing through their bond faster than spoken words. Jake began issuing orders that seemed impossible, vectoring his smaller force to exploit gaps that shouldn't have existed, timing maneuvers to arrive precisely when enemy shields would be cycling. "Sir?" Lieutenant Rodriguez questioned. "Are you sure about this approach?" "The tactical computer shows it has less than a 12% chance of success. Tactical computer doesn't account for inside information," Jake replied, feeling Lyra's fierce grin through their connection. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded military history. Jake commanded his ships with Zephyrian insights, while Lyra provided real-time intelligence on enemy capabilities and psychology. Their psychic bond allowed for coordination that transcended normal tactical communication. Korath's getting frustrated. Lyra observed as the enemy formation began showing signs of strain. He expected to overwhelm us quickly. The longer this takes, the more his own captains will question his judgment. "Then let's give them something really worth questioning," Jake replied, initiating a maneuver that should have been suicide. The Valiant broke from the protection of the human formation and streaked directly toward the Zephyrian flagship, apparently abandoning all tactical sense. Korath's response was predictable. Every ship in his fleet converged on the apparently suicidal human vessel. Now, Jake and Lyra thought simultaneously. The rest of the human task force emerged from the asteroid field where they'd been hiding, having used the Valiant as bait to draw the Zephyrian forces into a perfect ambush position. Concentrated fire from a dozen human vessels struck the enemy flagship. Just as its shields were recalibrating to track multiple targets, the mighty Zephyrian dreadnought shuddered under the assault, its shields failing in cascading bursts of energy. But instead of pressing the attack to destruction, Jake ordered his ships to hold fire. "Admiral Korath," he broadcast on all frequencies, "your flagship is disabled and your fleet is surrounded. I'm offering you the same choice you offered me, Zerender, and I'll guarantee fair treatment for you and your crews." The silence stretched for long moments. Through their bond, Jake felt Lyra's tension as she wondered how her people would respond to this unprecedented mercy from human forces. Finally, Korath's voice returned. But it was different. Now the arrogance replaced by grudging respect. "You fight like a Zephyrian human. Where did you learn our tactics?" "I had an excellent teacher," Jake replied, his hand finding Lyra's. The simple contact sent warmth through both of them, even in the midst of battle. "Impossible. No human could have learned our ways so quickly unless..." Korath's voice trailed off as understanding dawned. "The bonding ritual. You're connected." "To her, General Vexani is my partner," Jake confirmed. "In every sense that matters to your people." Another long pause. When Korath spoke again, his tone carried a weight Jake hadn't expected. "By the ancient laws, a bonded warrior cannot be reclaimed by force. Their loyalty belongs to their bondmate." Through their connection, Jake felt Lyra's surprise. "I didn't think he knew the old customs," she admitted. Most of the High Command considers them primitive superstition, but he's invoking them anyway. Jake observed. Why? The answer came through Lyra's memories and ancient Zephyrian laws that predated their modern empire. Codes of honor that many warriors still respected, even if their politicians ignored them. You claim bonding rights, Korath? Asked formally. I do, Jake replied, understanding somehow that this was a crucial moment. General Vexani chose me freely, and I accepted her choice. By your own laws, she's under my protection. What followed was the strangest moment of Jake's military career. The Zephyrian admiral, despite commanding a superior force and having every tactical advantage, formally withdrew his claim. So be it, Korath announced. But know this, human by accepting. A bonded Zephyrian warrior, you've bound yourself to our codes as well. Her honor is now your honor. Her enemies become your enemies. Her victories reflect on you, and her failures will shame you. I understand, Jake replied, and I accept those responsibilities. Do you really?
Lyra asked.
Through their bond. Her mental voice carrying both hope and concern. I accept you, Jake replied simply. Everything else we'll figure out together. The warmth that flooded through their connection was so intense that several bridge officers noticed them. Both smiled simultaneously. Korath's voice returned with what might have been approval. The High Command will not be pleased, but the law is the law. Vexani, you have chosen well. This human fights with more honor than most of our own commanders. Thank you, Admiral, Lyra replied formally. May your journey home be safe. As the Zephyrian fleet withdrew, Jake felt the tension drain from the bridge. But through their bond, he sensed that something fundamental had changed. They weren't just partners anymore. They were recognized as such by both their peoples. What happens now? He asked Lyra as they watched the enemy ships disappear into hyperspace. Now we build something new, she replied. A life together, a future for our peoples, family if we're fortunate enough. Jake felt his heart skip at the word family through their bond. He sensed Lyra's hope and nervousness about that possibility. Is that what you want? He asked gently. A family with me? Her response came as pure emotion, love, joy, and absolute certainty. More than anything I've ever wanted. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of the newly commissioned U.S. Unity, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first joint colony. Below them, human and Zephyrian engineers worked side by side, building something neither species could have achieved alone. Lyra approached from behind, her presence in their bond preceding her physical arrival by several seconds. She was in civilian clothes now, though she still carried herself like the warrior she'd always be. Her abdomen showed the first gentle curve of pregnancy, their child. The first natural human Zephyrian hybrid, growing strong and healthy. The medical reports came back, she said, settling into his arms with the easy comfort of long practice. Dr. Chen says our daughter is developing perfectly. The genetic compatibility is even better than expected. Jake placed his hands over hers on her stomach, marveling at the life they'd created together. Through their bond, he could sometimes sense a third presence. Tiny but growing stronger each day. She's going to be remarkable, Lyra observed, sharing her own sense of their child's developing consciousness. She'll have to be, Jake replied. She's going to inherit quite a legacy. Below them, the colony bustled with activity. Former enemies worked together, learned from each other, built trust through shared endeavor. What had started as a military asylum program had become something unprecedented, genuine cooperation between species. Any regrets? Jake asked aloud, watching a group of human and Zephyrian children playing together in the colony's central park. Lyra's answer came through their bond before she spoke. Absolute contentment, mixed with fierce joy, only that we waited so long. To surrender to each other? Jake laughed, pulling her closer. Is that what this was? Mutual surrender? It's the best kind, she confirmed. Complete, unconditional, and permanent. Their daughter stirred in Lyra's womb, her presence brushing against both parents' consciousness with what felt remarkably like approval. Through their bond, Jake and Lyra shared a moment of perfect understanding. They weren't just building a life together, they were creating a future where love could transcend the boundaries of species, where former enemies could become family. "I love you, Jake," thought to his alien warrior princess, his bonded partner, his wife in every way that mattered, "and I love you, my impossible human," Lyra replied. "Thank you for accepting my surrender. Thank you for offering it." Jake responded, as their child's consciousness joined theirs in a moment of perfect harmony. In the end, General Lyra Vexani had surrendered her army and offered herself as a prize of war. But what she'd really won was something far more valuable. A partner who would stand beside her as they built a bridge between worlds, a love that transcended species boundaries, and a future where their daughter would inherit the best of both peoples as they watched the sun set over their new world. Jake and Lyra knew that some surrenders weren't defeats at all. They were victories disguised as submission, leading to triumphs neither could have achieved alone. Their bond hummed with contentment. Their child grew strong in Lyra's womb, and two species learned to call each other family. The alien general had surrendered everything she'd once been to become something greater, not a prize of war, but a partner in peace. Building tomorrow with the human hood had the courage to accept her trust forever. Jake asked through their bond as stars began to appear in the colony's darkening sky. "Forever," Lyra confirmed, her mental voice carrying absolute certainty. In this life, and whatever comes after, their daughter's presence pulsed with agreement, and Jake knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bonded, united, and completely surrendered to the love they'd found in each other. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.